The Genius Who Exposed Konoha's Dark Secret. Please like, share and subscribe. Episode 41. Reinforcement. Tsukumo requested to send additional reinforcement S. What are your thoughts on this? Sarutobi, the third Hokage, discussed in the conference room at the Hokage building. With his strength, shouldn't he be able to handle the hidden enemies within the Land of Fire? Koharu turned her head and furrowed her brow, clearly dissatisfied with Tsukumo's request for additional reinforcement. The opponents consist of 2 elite jonin from the Suna puppet army, along with 3 other jonin, one of whom possesses wide-ranging Earth-style jutsus, Sarutobi replied, shaking the pipe in his hand. But there is no direct evidence to prove that they are ninjas from Iwagakure, Koharu argued. Sarutobi sighed, I can't dismiss this matter simply because there haven't been any mission changes from Iwagakure. I don't believe Anoki would remain idle during this time. As you mentioned, there are serious suspicions surrounding both Iwagakure and Kirigakure as well, Advisor Homura interjected, glancing at Sarutobi. That's why I stayed behind in the village when the third Kazekage left. I wanted to prevent other villages from intervening and further escalating the chaos on the battlefield, Sarutobi explained. What's your plan then? We can't fully trust the Uchiha police force. Danzo is currently leading the route and carrying out secret missions outside the village. It's already incredibly risky to have only 2 Umbu teams remaining in the village in case something happens, Homura questioned, his eyes filled with questions. Homura is correct. In the past, we always had the Umbu from the 3 divisions staying behind. Now, with only 2 Umbu teams available, it's already a gamble, Koharu added, expressing her lack of trust in the Uchiha. The Uchiha are also members of Konoha. We shouldn't be prejudiced against them. They are an integral part of our village, Hiruzen chimed in, releasing a solemn smoke ring from his mouth. The decision to entrust the police force to the Uchiha clan was made by his late teacher, the second Hokage Senju Tobirama. Here were various reasons for this decision. On one hand, it was out of fear, and on the other hand, it aimed to restrict the Uchiha's power to the police force alone. Only the Uchiha possessed the necessary skills for this task. The Uchiha's work had been remarkable. Although there were some troublemakers among them, there were also Uchiha ninjas genuinely committed to maintaining internal security in Konoha. Hiruzen believed that not everyone should be judged based on the actions of a few. Furthermore, his teacher had wanted to fully integrate the Uchiha clan into Konoha, rather than excluding them. Unfortunately, his teacher died on the battlefield during the First Great Ninja War, which disrupted the plans for the Uchiha. For all these years, progress had been slow. While Hiruzen's efforts as Hokage had improved relations, substantial progress had not been made. A mirror is a mirror, and an Uchiha is an Uchiha. They exist at different levels. Within the Uchiha, there are still many ninjas who embrace Uchiha Madara's radical ideologies. These individuals pose a potential danger. The advisors remained skeptical, not trusting the Uchiha, particularly those who possessed the cursed power and awakened the Sharingan. Let's make a compromise then. We'll divide the Umbu into 2 squads. Only by eliminating the rats within the Land of Fire can Tsukumo proceed to the battlefield and launch a counterattack against the Suna, Sarutobi proposed. But if any abnormalities arise within the Uchiha, I will personally take action to resolve the situation. You can rest assured, a powerful aura emanated from Hiruzen's body, creating an unprecedented pressure that even Homura and Koharu felt. In this way, Hiruzen indirectly conveyed to Homura and Koharu that as long as he, the Hokage, was present, regardless of what happened with the Uchiha, he would remain on site and ensure that the garrison duties were carried out properly, without any issues. This deep-rooted self-confidence was clearly reflected on Sarutobi's face. Since you've put it that way, Hiruzen, we'll proceed accordingly, Homura conceded. But do not let your guard down when it comes to the Uchiha. They are born with evil potential, and precautions must always be taken, Koharu warned, reminding Sarutobi about Uchiha one final time before temporarily setting aside the matter. In addition, the supplies sent to the front lines are insufficient. Koharu and I need to go to Daimyo's mansion to discuss with Daimyo and collect supplies there. Homura and Koharu exchanged glances, and as he spoke up. Are we running low on supplies again? Hiruzen paused his smoking. Yes, medical supplies are particularly scarce, but we have enough food, pills and ninja tools, Homura replied. Go early and return promptly, Hiruzen instructed. Any ninja leaving the village required written authorization from the Hokage. Even advisors like Homura and Koharu needed Hokage's handwritten permission before they could leave the village. Having obtained the handwritten letters from Hiruzen that permitted them to leave the village, Homura and Koharu exited the conference room. A sentinel located in the northern part of Konoha served as a temporary supply station for Team Tsukumo, with around 20 Konoha ninja guards stationed there. Fortunately, the sentinel had a simple infirmary where Shiraishi brought the severely injured Konoha ninja from another sentinel earlier, allowing him to rest and recover. Though he appeared conscious, he was no longer in a critical condition. Meanwhile, Ruri and Iane negotiated with the Konoha ninja at the sentinel to secure supplies such as food, water, and medical provisions. Once the preparations were complete, Sakumo put away his scroll and announced some good news. Hokage-sama has agreed to send additional assistance, an expert in the field of investigation. However, we cannot afford to relax here. Now that we have our supplies, let's proceed immediately. Yes. Shiraishi and the others responded in unison, following Sakumo to resume their mission. Currently, they were situated in the south-central region of the Land of Fire, and their next route would take them eastwards. This area neighbored the country of Yuno, known for its hot springs. Although it would have been a pleasant destination under different circumstances, their current task took precedence. For 2 days, they patrolled the area without encountering anything out of the ordinary, including no sign of Sunanins. However, considering their location in the heartland of the Land of Fire, it was unlikely for the Suna to cause havoc here. Nevertheless, Sakumo, ever vigilant, wouldn't leave any area unchecked, just in case. On the 3rd day, when their supplies ran low, they made their way to a nearby Konoha sentinel to restock. You kids are truly remarkable to embark on such a dangerous mission alongside Sakumo-san at such a young age, remarked the captain at the sentinel, a jonin in his 30s. Observing the noticeably inexperienced faces of Shiraishi and the others, he sighed. Our contribution is actually quite minimal, and many times, we find ourselves being taken care of by Sakumo-san. Shiraishi humbly responded. He understood Sakumo's character as a jonin. Unless he gave his approval, he would never involve them in such a perilous mission, sticking to his principles. In other words, their abilities had been recognized by him. Sakumo was a man who cherished his comrades. Recalling something, the jonin continued, I have worked with Sakumo on a mission in the past. Back then, he may have seemed cold, but he was actually a gentle and rather shy person. To enemies, he was the ruthless Konoha White Fang, but to his own people, he was a trustworthy companion who had their backs. I never imagined Sakumo-sensei was like that in the past. It's hard to tell, Shiraishi remarked. Perhaps over the years, Sakumo had undergone significant changes, making it difficult for them to see his shy side. The 3 of them could only speculate. Take, what kind of strange things are you teaching my students? Sakumo interjected as he approached. Just sharing some ninja experiences, as an elder Take replied. Oh, and this guy is a bit of a pervert, Sakumo suddenly added. Ruri and Iane cast a vigilant glance at Take before taking a step back. Hey. Take blushed. Especially when it comes to men, Sakumo added, causing Shiraishi's smile to freeze upon hearing it. Ruri and Iane breathed a sigh of relief, glad that the attention had shifted. Just then, a Konoha ninja covered in blood emerged from the dense grass at the sentinel point, attempting to run. However, he collapsed from his severe injury. Rise after only a few steps. Be careful, enemies. He managed to utter before losing consciousness. Episode 43, White Fang. As soon as the severely injured Konoha ninja finished speaking, he closed his eyes and lay there, alive or dead. Hey, are you alright? The 2 nearby ninjas hurriedly ran towards the seriously injured ninja. Wait, you 2 newbies, don't just go over there. Take's expression changed. The seriously injured Konoha ninja suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a brutal and fierce light in his eyes, showing no signs of injury at all. However, before he could make a move, he groaned. The white fan pierced through the white light and stabbed into the back of his neck, causing blood to flow. Everything happened so fast for the 2 new genin, including Shiraishi, they were stunned. Only then did Take let out a sigh of relief. He also felt a little annoyed. It seems that he should educate these newcomers well in the future. Having experience isn't the most important thing, having a flexible mind is. Byakugan. Iane's eyes were covered with ferocious blue veins, and her white pupils exuded a solemn aura. Is it an old acquaintance? Yes, there are 2 new faces in the team. Judging from their chakra strength, they are not ordinary ninjas. Iane reported. Hey, Take, get ready. Sakumo shouted at Take. Got it. Take arranged the ninjas at the sentry post and took out a large wooden crossbow that was always ready, filled with numerous kunai. 2 o'clock from your position. Iane reported the enemy's location directly. Release. Countless kunai were unleashed like a sudden torrential rain, flying towards the dense forest area. Wind release, raging waves. The whistling wind cut through the air like sharp blades, leaving tragic marks on the trees along the way. The kunai that were thrown were also blown off course by the gust of wind, unable to move forward. Fire release, fire formation. Take formed seals with his hands, and flames started swirling around his feet like a vortex. Then, they surged forward, immediately turning the forest that had caused the storm into a sea of fire. It's a wind release jutsu fueled by release, increasing takes fire jutsu to a higher level. It's a familiar face indeed. A smile appeared on Shiraishi's face as he saw more than a dozen Suna ninjas emerging from the sea of fire almost unharmed. It was the Suna troop with 5 joinin that they had encountered more than 2 months ago. However, this time there were 2 additional members in their team, most likely special or elite level ninjas. Little brat, your smoke tactics won't work this time. Last time, Shiraishi had used smoke bombs to assist Ruri and Ayane in the battle, causing significant trouble for the Suna unit. Fighting against Sharingan and Byakugan in an unfavorable environment was no easy task. Without any further delay, they directly engaged in combat. Tsukumo had undoubtedly identified the leaders, a male and a female Suna Jonin. They were the son and daughter-in-law of Chiyo, the advisor of Sunagakure, and they were among the top experts in the Suna puppet army. Apart from Tsukumo, no one present was capable of stopping them. Although the opposing team had lost a few Chunin after the last battle, they had added 2 new members this time. One of them had used a powerful wind release to deflect all the kunai launched from the crossbow. Impressive ninjutsu skills indeed. At the sentry post, there were nearly 20 Konoha ninjas in total, with about half of them being lower-level ninjas. Most of the rest were Chunin, and only Take was a Junin ninja. In terms of numbers, Konoha had the advantage. However, in terms of overall strength, it was clear that the Suna side had the upper hand. Shiraishi drew his sword and stepped forward to fight. Over these days, he had been learning kenjutsu from Tsukumo and had made some progress. Ruri charged forward first, her Sharingan activated, and her eyes filled with determination. She attacked the Jonin who was skilled in earth release ninjutsu. The Jonin defended against Ruri's strike with a kunai, the clash producing a fierce and harsh sound. I may be strong, but I'm not foolish enough to compete with you physically. The Jonin sneered as he easily stepped back. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and just as he was about to press his palms onto the ground, he suddenly felt a powerful binding force constricting him, and the scene before him began to distort. 2 enormous Sharingan eyes spun in front of him, radiating a dark aura and fixating their gaze on him. He immediately realized that he had fallen into a genjutsu. But since he had already avoided Ruri's line of sight, it shouldn't be possible for him to be affected by the illusion, right? The kunai slashed across his body, leaving a deep wound on his chest and causing blood to flow. In pain, the earth release ninja held onto the wound and managed to escape Ruri's assassination at the critical moment. Oops! Seeing that the earth release ninja had been trapped by Ruri's illusion from their initial encounter escape, the Suna ninja next to him couldn't sit idly by. Ruri found herself surrounded and had to turn around and retreat. It seems I'm not very skilled at genjutsu. I should be relieved that he didn't break free so quickly. Observing the earth release ninja returning to normal, they let out a sigh of relief. Hey, that's a Jonin, isn't it? Both Shiraishi and Ayane felt a bit embarrassed. If they struggled against someone who wasn't skilled in genjutsu, they couldn't imagine how formidable Uchiha ninjas proficient in genjutsu would be. Be careful, that little girl is different from 2 months ago. Her genjutsu are very strange and completely unpredictable. The earth release ninja had a serious expression, suspecting that Ruri's genjutsu were not solely reliant on the Sharingan. I can see that. In any case, we should avoid direct confrontation with her. Boom. Shiraishi swiftly threw a smoke bomb, causing an explosion. Since only he, Ruri, and Ayane were present, the other Konoha ninjas engaged in battle elsewhere, so the smoke wouldn't affect them. Nice try, but that won't work on us. Among the Suna nins present, some were skilled in wind release ninjutsu. Wind release, raging waves jutsu, fire release, fireball jutsu. The wind and fireball clashed, creating a massive flamestorm that lingered, obscuring the surrounding vision. Damn it. Retreat. Realizing they were no match for their opponents, the Suna nins decided to escape, even with their limited field of vision. 11 o'clock, the sensory ninja from Suna reported the direction. The earth release ninja shouted, Earth release, dynamic earth core. The ground ahead suddenly sank. Using a kunai, Shiraishi and the others anchored themselves to the wall, preventing themselves from falling. Hey, that guy is definitely from Iwagakure. The situation is getting worse. Shiraishi began to suspect that the ninja employing earth release jutsus was from Iwagakure, infiltrating the Sunagakure's ranks. In other words, the 2 villages might be secretly collaborating. Enough talking. Whether it's Sunagakure or Iwagakure, just kill them. Ruri asserted. Such ninjas capable of manipulating the terrain would pose a significant threat if they couldn't be eliminated immediately. Shiraishi, Ruri, and Ayane dashed across the vertical earth wall, reaching the elevated ground. Trees collapsed around them, and smoke billowed. Nearly half of the sentry was now in ruins. Meanwhile, on the other side. "Your doom has arrived, White Fang," declared the male puppet master, manipulating his puppet with confidence. The female puppet master stood by silently, her cold eyes fixed on Sakumo's every move. "It's best not to waste your breath on words like these. When trouble comes knocking, I won't need to exert extra effort to find it," Sakumo responded calmly, vanishing from his spot. Two puppets, controlled by their respective puppet masters, followed closely behind. Sakumo deflected them with White Fang emitting a white glow. "Do you think the same trick will work on us?" How naive. Once again, the two puppets separated, with one on the left and the other on the right. A pitch-black chain extended from their sleeves, connected to both puppets. Unlike before, this chain was shared between the two. The puppets gracefully circled and danced through the air around Sakumo. The chain featured serrated blades, producing continuous creaking sounds. If caught, it would tear apart its target with its saw-like teeth. In the eyes of their enemy, Sakumo was cornered in mid-air with no means to dodge the attack. A certain death. Okay? The male puppet master was suddenly taken aback as Sakumo, surrounded by the two puppets, mysteriously disappeared from their midst. How is this possible? Without a point of leverage, executing instantaneous body techniques was impossible. Could it be space-time ninjutsu? The male puppet master was shocked by this revelation. Having identified this weakness in Sakumo, the male puppet master was confident that he could kill him in his powerless state. A faint sound of wind being sliced through reached the male puppet master's ears. In that moment, he seemed to grasp something. What followed, however, was an even more severe injury than before, with blood spurting out. The female puppet master also panicked and hastily withdrew her puppet. A flash of sword light. The puppet was severed in half. What? One of the female puppet master's arms was severed, resulting in a gush of blood and a pale face. Sakumo's expression turned cold and deadly. Suddenly, a Suna ninja rushed in from the left, wielding a blade of wind in their hand. At this point, Sakumo could kill both the male and female puppet masters, but he would also sustain severe injuries. Acting on instinct, he twisted his body, catching the incoming ninja's arm with one hand and causing their wind blade to miss its target. Immediately, Sakumo thrust his White Fang into the ninja's neck from the left side. The opponent's body swayed twice before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. Meanwhile, the male and female puppet masters vanished. It won't be that easy to escape. Both were severely injured, with the male puppet master already unconscious. Now was the opportune time to pursue them. Sakumo's eyes gleamed with icy determination. Episode 44, Pursuit, Fire Release, Phoenix Fire Jutsu. Ruri utilized dozens of small fireballs as a cover as she surged forward. Shiraishi and Ayane naturally followed behind her. Among the three, Ruri was the most suitable for leading the charge. Due to the presence of wind release users among the enemy forces this time, the effectiveness of smoke bombs was limited. At best, they would cause some disruption before being dispersed by the wind. Creating smoke that could withstand the wind's force required time, materials, and a complex blending process. Fortunately, the Jonin skilled in earth release had been initially hindered by Ruri's genjutsu, resulting in serious injuries. This meant that only 2 ninjas remained unharmed, while the rest were chunin. In comparison to their previous encounter, the situation was much more favorable. The dozens of small fireballs caused some confusion as they descended, setting trees ablaze and filling the air with the smell of burnt wood. The ninjas naturally attempted to avoid Ruri's peculiar genjutsu, as being controlled by it would be disastrous. Consequently, feinting tactics became their primary approach, as they hadn't yet determined the medium used to trigger Ruri's genjutsu. Both Shiraishi's group and the Suna ninjas understood that the outcome of this battle would be decided by Sakumo's actions. The victor or loser on Sakumo's side would determine the ultimate direction of the conflict. Their role here was to delay the enemy for as long as possible. Shiraishi sought out a chunin opponent, relying primarily on physical abilities. His speed and strength surpassed that of an average chunin. With the swordsmanship he learned from Sakumo, Shiraishi managed to hold his own. On the other side, the opponent seemed somewhat relieved to have found a comparable adversary. If possible, he would prefer not to fight ninjas with Sharingan or Byakugan, especially the seemingly innocent girl with white eyes. When one of his teammates attacked her previously, she swiftly killed him with a single blow, impaling him through the heart with 2 fingers. It was nothing like the gentle fist techniques described in textbooks. while it shared some similarities, it had distinct personal characteristics. Being struck by it would be fatal. Furthermore, the ninja realized he had to be cautious of the opponent's elusive illusions created by Sharingan. Even a Jonin could fall prey to them. This made the battle with the Chunin extremely challenging for him. You've managed to hold on for quite a while. Your strength isn't bad, Shiraishi's opponent remarked, displaying the type of attitude that inflated self-confidence when facing weaker foes. But that's as far as it goes when you face me. In an instant, the opponent's speed increased dramatically. He circled behind Shiraishi, locking his arms around Shiraishi's neck, making it difficult for him to breathe. How about now? Are you? Boom. Shiraishi transformed into a wooden log, with an exploding tag attached to it. The Chunin's eyes widened, quickly retreating. Boom. He was sent flying by the shock wave of the explosion, only coming to a stop after colliding with a large tree. Blood stained the corner of his mouth. Perched on a branch of another tree, Shiraishi smiled and remarked, "Impressive, isn't it? Escaping the explosion of an explosive tag is one of the few unique skills I possess. Damn you. How dare you?" Enraged and humiliated by Shiraishi's trick, the ninja desperately gathered chakra in the soles of his feet, racing toward the tree at high speed, intending to make Shiraishi suffer as well. Unfortunately, it's over. Shiraishi finished his words just as the ninja's fist was mere inches away from his face. In that instant, a flash of white sword light extended from Shiraishi's back diagonally to the front, like lightning. The ninja's neck was cleanly severed, and he lost consciousness almost instantly, tumbling from mid-air. It seems the situation is under control over there, Sakumo-sensei. I don't believe there's anything to worry about here. Sakumo nodded, satisfied with the performance of Shiraishi and the others. With continued refinement, they would undoubtedly follow in his footsteps. After all, the three of them were only 12 years old, and their future held great promise. The Suna ninja who had been fighting Ruri and Ain sensed that something was amiss the moment Sakumo appeared. Simultaneously, he cursed the male and female puppet masters inwardly, realizing that victory had slipped from his grasp even faster than last time, and it had taken only a few minutes. Their fighting spirit waned abruptly. Earth release, earthen wall. Without hesitation, the earth release Jonin gathered chakra in both hands, using a wide-range earth release ninjutsu. Boom. A towering stone wall resembling a city wall emerged, causing the ground to tremble due to its extensive coverage. Ruri and Ain climbed atop the massive stone wall, overlooking an empty expanse. Sakumo and Shiraishi joined them shortly after. Ain, team up with me. Let's get moving. Yes. Although it was a brief exchange, Shiraishi and the others understood Sakumo's plan. Sakumo intended to pursue the most troublesome enemies, and he needed Ain's eyes to aid him in locating the male and female puppet masters and eliminating them. From this point forward, it was time for Konoha to launch a counterattack against Suna and hunt down the fleeing Suna ninjas. Thus, Sakumo and Ain, as well as Shiraishi and Ruri, began their search. After some time, Shiraishi and Ruri encountered the humiliated Take. They were accompanied by a dozen or so Konoha ninjas, some of whom had sustained minor injuries but nothing too severe. The opponent Take had faced earlier was also a Jonin, and there were several Chunin present as well. For a while, neither side gained the upper hand, but with the defeat of the male and female puppet masters, the Suna forces lost their backbone and were forced to retreat. Since that's the case, I'll continue the search here. This time, I will avenge my fallen comrade. Take expressed his resentment. He had heard some details about the Suna force that had been roaming the Land of Fire. They had attacked 5 or 6 Konoha sentinels, leaving dozens of Konoha ninjas dead or injured. Many had fallen victim to them alone. If it weren't for Sakumo's team coincidentally resupplying in this area, the entire Konoha ninja contingent at the Sentinel would likely have been wiped out. After bidding farewell to Take and instructing him to lead the remaining ninjas along a different path for the search, Shiraishi headed off. Should they encounter a formidable enemy, they were to signal for assistance. Even in the event of an emergency, they would be able to provide timely support. Oh, by the way, Ruri, I have a clever plan to lure them into a trap. While running, Shiraishi suddenly burst into laughter. What are you scheming now? After all, this is the fastest way to end the battle. And since Sakumo-sensei and Ain aren't here, I don't have to go to great lengths to hide my true strength. With that, Shiraishi accelerated his pace, distancing himself from Ruri in an instant and disappearing from her sight. Ruri stared at the spot where Shiraishi had vanished with her Sharingan, remaining silent as if accepting the other's proposed method. Half an hour later, Shiraishi arrived in a serene and empty forest. Before him flowed a crystal-clear stream where a few fish frolicked. Shiraishi surveyed his surroundings, picked up a stone with a sharp edge from the stream, and approached a nearby tree with the intent of engraving a mark on it using the stone. A cold sensation sent shivers down his spine. It was a kunai. The hand holding the kunai was wooden, and the arm extending from the black sleeve was smooth and hairless, with rounded joints reminiscent of a doll. A puppet. Drop the stone and raise your hands. A cold female voice commanded. Shiraishi obediently let go of the stone fragments and slowly raised his hands, a cold sweat naturally forming on his face. Episode 45. A great work. Are you a medical ninja? Yes. Come with me. Yes. Shiraishi turned around and saw a beautiful woman with long brown hair manipulating the puppet. She appeared to be no older than 30 years old, and he recognized her as one of the 2 puppet masters of the Suna army. However, she had an arm cut off and was currently bandaging the wound, which affected her overall appearance. Nevertheless, even with the loss of an arm, a puppet master of her caliber wouldn't see a significant decrease in strength. After all, the power of a puppet master lies in the puppets themselves. The woman led the way unsuspectingly, seemingly not on guard against Shiraishi. Ignoring the puppet holding a kunai to his neck seemed to be the right move. Considering her current state, it was only natural for her to be cautious. There was a sturdy tree that would require a dozen people to surround. Although it wasn't completely surrounded, its hollow bottom revealed a dark hole through which a faint light shone. Shiraishi was compelled to enter, and with the external light, he could catch a glimpse of the conditions inside. A red-haired man lay on the ground, extremely weak, with a shocking incision on his chest. Although hastily bandaged, the bandage was stained with blood, and it could only provide temporary hemostasis. After some time, they would have to abandon him and escape alone. However, according to the intelligence Shiraishi had obtained, the 2 puppet masters, a husband and wife, were the children of a high-ranking member of Suna. They were a loving couple of ninjas. Rather than leaving her husband to fend for himself here, she might also think about sacrificing herself or even having suicidal thoughts. Such a possibility existed. Ninjas were still human beings. No matter how much they suppressed their emotions, it only made them stronger. If one were to calculate only in terms of profit and loss, every individual would be a wise person unless it was the last resort. However, in reality, there weren't always so many wise individuals who were completely exhausted. In comparison to profit and loss, humans were creatures influenced more easily by emotions. The woman's best choice would be to kill her husband, dispose of his body to prevent information leakage, and then leave alone as quickly as possible. But she didn't do it, which was evidence in itself. Save him, no tricks. The woman's words were brief, making it clear to Shiraishi what she meant. Understood. If I save him, can I request mercy and spare my own life? The woman remained silent. The kunai held by the puppet around Shiraishi's neck almost severed his throat. Shiraishi shrugged helplessly. A faint green light appeared on his right hand. He crouched down and slowly lifted the bandage on the male puppet master's chest with his left hand. The man was unconscious and let out a pained groan. Shiraishi enveloped the green light over the wound on the male puppet master's body, allowing it to heal as quickly as possible. This wound was caused by wind attribute chakra. I'll need 10 minutes to heal it. As his student, don't you know the secret of White Fang's swordsmanship? The female puppet master frowned. Shiraishi shook his head. He knew that Sakumo's swordsmanship was formidable, but he didn't possess much knowledge about its secrets. Perhaps the enemy knew, but those who knew the secret of White Fang's swordsmanship might have perished. In Konoha, it was difficult to determine how many individuals were aware. It was likely that even Sakumo practiced in secret. After all, it wasn't wise to casually delve into the secrets of a fellow ninja, as it could easily cause discord among themselves. Especially for a powerful jonin like Sakumo, the secret of his swordsmanship might only be known in detail by high-level officials such as the Hokage. As time passed, the male puppet master's condition improved, and his breathing gradually calmed. The female puppet master looked at Shiraishi with a slightly surprised expression and said, "Your medical ninjutsu is impressive. No wonder you were placed by White Fang's side." She understood the severity of her husband's injury, but she hadn't expected Shiraishi to heal him in 10 minutes, without even resorting to surgery. She felt relieved, knowing that Shiraishi was a jonin under Sakumo's command. This medical nin who followed Konoha's White Fang might not be exceptional, but his medical ninjutsu skills were undoubtedly outstanding. Even among the medical ninjas in their Sunageker, including those with remarkable medical abilities, it was unlikely that they possessed the same level of skill in medical ninjutsu as Shiraishi. This explained why a genin with average abilities was qualified to accompany Konoha's White Fang. Indeed, Konoha was truly the cradle of geniuses. The injury has been healed, but there are still serious internal injuries. To fully recover, I'll need an operating room and some herbs. Shiraishi stepped aside and stood obediently. No need, that will do for now. The female puppet master's face showed a hint of relief. Just as a weight seemed to lift from her heart, the male puppet master lying on the ground suddenly screamed. His lips turned a dark shade of red, and he began coughing violently, spewing out strange, dark red blood. Poisoned. Shock washed over the female puppet master's face. Simultaneously, the fingers on her one remaining arm started twitching, and her eyes emanated a terrifying killing intent as she prepared to control the puppet to attack. Her movements were not slow. In fact, her fingers were more agile than Shiraishi's to some extent. However, Shiraishi had a plan. Taking the male puppet master's screams as a signal, Shiraishi condensed blue chakra in his hand, forming a blade-like shape. He swiftly turned around and swung his hand. Just as the puppet was about to make its move, it was sliced to pieces by Shiraishi's hand blade. A loud bang reverberated through the air as a shower of wooden splinters scattered in front of Shiraishi. This level of reaction and speed was beyond the capability of an ordinary genin. The female puppet master finally grasped the gravity of the situation. All her strength was focused on the puppet. Before, her puppet had been destroyed by White Fang, and now she controlled her husband's puppet, which had also been shattered. Even if she wanted to summon a new backup puppet, it would take time. However, Shiraishi's speed and reflexes caught her off guard. Without further thought, she grabbed her poisoned and blood-vomiting husband and rushed out of the tree hollow. All she could do now was flee for her life. Just as she made her way outside, having taken only a few steps, a petite figure suddenly landed in front of her. 3 tomos rotated within the scarlet eyes. Well. The female puppet master froze in place, unable to move a muscle. Her husband rolled on the ground, coughing in agony, with his lips turning black. Pfft. A blade pierced through the female puppet master's back, piercing all the way through to her chest, impaling her heart. She toppled forward, a look of unwillingness in her eyes, and she breathed her last. With the blood-stained ninja sword in his hand, Shiraishi glanced indifferently at the lifeless body of the female puppet master, then approached the poisoned and unconscious male puppet master. Without hesitation, he sliced open his chest, bringing an end to his suffering. That was easier than planned. A smile appeared on Ruri's face. Of course, the puppet master's main source of power lies within the puppet itself. If we cannot directly target the puppet master, then destroying the puppet by seizing opportunities is the way to go. With Sakumo's strength, he can simply focus on attacking the puppet master directly. There's no need for this frustrating performance and time wasting. It seems luck is on our side. You deserve the credit for these too. Shiraishi generously attributed the credit to Ruri, content to remain in the background. Ruri nodded calmly, accepting the credit. By the way, I forgot to mention that the Yamanaka clan excels at gathering information from corpses. As long as the brain remains intact, remember to clean the scene thoroughly and leave no trace behind. Ruri suddenly remembered something and spoke up. Understood. It's quite troublesome, and I'm wasting my medical supplies again, making it appear as if I'm up to no good. Shiraishi casually complained, rummaged through his pouch, retrieved 2 syringes filled with lavender liquid, and approached the 2 lifeless bodies on the ground. Don't complain. We happened to catch quite the big catch this time, and the village will surely reward us handsomely. Ruri took one of the syringes from Shiraishi and injected the liquid into the neck of the female puppet master's corpse. Immediately, the pathways on the surface of the female puppet master's body surged as if they were about to burst through the skin. This ugly phenomenon lasted for less than 3 seconds before the corpse returned to its previous state, as if nothing had happened. I've heard that Hokage-sama possesses a scroll book that contains various powerful mysteries and forbidden techniques. Don't even think about it. The Senju clan wouldn't be so generous to outsiders. Perhaps in the time of the first Hokage, such a possibility existed. Ruri had a talent for dousing excitement with cold water. After erasing any traces, Shiraishi and Ruri returned to the Sentinel with the 2 lifeless bodies. Episode 46. Reward. The news of Sakumo's team successfully eliminating Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law caused a significant stir among Konoha's senior officials. This victory marked Konoha's only major triumph on the battlefield since the war with Sunagakure began over 2 years ago. In many ways, this victory equated to the success of a large-scale war. As the son and daughter-in-law of esteemed advisors, they were top-ranking experts in the Sunagakure's puppet army. The information and secret techniques stored in their minds were of utmost importance to Konoha. Upon receiving this news, the ANBU swiftly relayed it to the third Hokage, who immediately instructed Sakumo's team to return to the village. Their primary task was to extract vital secret information and puppet techniques from the deceased puppet masters and gather intelligence on how to counter the puppet troops. These findings held immense significance for Konoha's current situation. Thus, upon receiving the Hokage's orders, Sakumo led Shiraishi and the others back to Konohagakure, their absence lasting several months. "I'll go submit the mission. You three can have some free time for now," Sakumo said. "Yes," they replied. At the entrance to Konoha, the four of them parted ways. Sakumo made his way to the Hokage building to report their mission, while Shiraishi and the others, plagued by hunger after their non-stop journey, sought out a place to satisfy their empty stomachs. Hokage-sama, Sakumo greeted, knocking on the door before entering and offering a slight bow to the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, who sat beside his desk. To his surprise, he found that advisors Koharu and Hamura were also present. Sakumo nodded in acknowledgement, showing respect to the two advisors who had recently returned from securing supplies for the war. As the Sakumo team had accomplished an exceptional mission this time, the advisors were present as witnesses to the proceedings. "Thank you for your hard work, Sakumo. You did an excellent job this time. With this victory, the Land of Fire's security shouldn't be much of a concern. The rest can be handled by the ANBU," Sarutobi commended. "Yes," Sakumo replied. Considering the heavy losses suffered by the Suna village, it wouldn't be wise to continue sending elite troops deep into the Land of Fire for covert operations. Hence, the security work within the country would be entrusted to the ANBU and other Konoha ninjas stationed at various outposts. Thus, Sakumo's squad's months-long mission concluded here. "Have the bodies been turned over to the interrogation department?" Sarutobi inquired. "They've already been handed over, and none of the enemies survived," Sakumo answered. Although Shiraishi and Ruri had made significant contributions on that day, Sakumo and Iane had also chased down and neutralized the fleeing Suna ninjas and the IWA ninjas suspected to be involved. Take had also played a part in their capture. With this, the troublesome Suna team that had given Konoha so much trouble had been eliminated. The difficulty and importance of this mission could be classified as S rank. Sarutobi nodded, then turned to advisors Koharu and Hamura. "Next, let the members of the Yamanaka clan thoroughly investigate. We need to acquire the enemy's secrets. Consider it done. We must uncover the weaknesses of the puppet army as soon as possible, allowing the Suna village to understand the true strength of Konoha." The advisors agreed, highly satisfied with Sakumo's team's performance. As expected, they were Konoha's top jonin, surpassing even the Sannin. "This time, your team has done exceedingly well. Your reward will be calculated based on 1 S-rank mission and 5 A-rank missions completed over the past few months," Sarutobi said, visibly relieved. Sakumo had no objections. With 1 S-rank mission and 5 A-rank missions, even if Shiraishi and the others split the rewards evenly, each member would receive at least 1 million ryo. However, the monetary reward was merely secondary. Such significant contributions warranted more than just financial compensation, and the village would surely offer additional generous rewards in due time. It was just that the Hokage hadn't decided on the specifics yet, so it would take a couple of days for the rewards to be distributed to Sakumo's entire team. "Regarding my reward, Hokage-sama, I would prefer if it were given directly to the other three. They need it more than I do," Sakumo proposed. "You never change, Sakumo," Hiruzen responded, giving him a helpless look. "Well, after all, I didn't personally eliminate those two puppet masters, did I?" Sakumo chuckled. Though he had come to understand that it was not he who had defeated the puppet masters, if he hadn't taken the lead and inflicted heavy damage on them, no one else would have received the credit. Hiruzen, therefore, had no choice but to acquiesce to Sakumo's request since he genuinely had nothing to offer in reward. Even if he had allowed Sakumo to access the sealed book in the past, it had been declined with a smile. Sakumo was the white fan of Konoha, and swordsmanship was his essence. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, and the like only served to enhance the speed and power of his sword. It didn't mean Sakumo lacked knowledge of ninjutsu, on the contrary, he possessed exceptional talent in that field. He was merely a pragmatist who believed that as long as he could kill the enemy with kenjutsu using White Fang before they could utilize ninjutsu, he would emerge victorious. The White Fang in his hand was his most potent ninjutsu. After submitting the mission report, Sakumo left the office. "As I see exceptional young talents emerging in the village, I can't help but feel my age," Koharu sighed with emotion. "We're only in our 40s, we're not that old yet," Hamura complained, dissatisfied with being called old. "Well, I still have about 10 years left in this position," Hiruzen chimed in. "Hiruzen, have you decided who the next Hokage will be?" Koharu asked. Hiruzen fell silent for a moment. He hadn't made up his mind on this matter yet. The selection of the next Hokage involves choosing the most renowned, powerful, and charismatic ninja among the Jonin. Currently, Sakumo is the closest candidate to the position. He has a higher reputation than the Sannin, stronger abilities, and his character is beyond reproach. He is ruthless and cold-blooded toward his enemies but caring and protective toward his comrades, even if he struggles to express it. One could say he is a qualified candidate for Hokage. Moreover, Sakumo's strength continues to advance rapidly, and he is far from reaching the peak age for a ninja. Even now, he is already a great Jonin in the village. In 10 years, he will be even more formidable and a haunting nightmare to the enemy. He's not suitable to be Hokage, Hiruzen stated. Koharu and Hamura looked at Hiruzen with surprise. I'm glad you understand. After all, he now has an Uchiha ninja in his team. She achieved the rank of Jonin at a young age and the genius of Uchiha clan. We must be cautious around him at all times. Upon hearing Koharu and Hamura once again bringing up the Uchiha clan, Hiruzen took a drag from his cigarette and exhaled. Alright, I've taken that into account. You two can head back now. He didn't want to argue with them about this matter. He had other tasks to focus on and, more importantly, how to further reward the Sakumo team. The annihilation of the Suna troops held great significance. By utilizing the secret jutsu of the Yamanaka clan, they could extract valuable information from the enemy's minds and acquire various Suna secret techniques, including intelligence on the puppet troops. Even without these considerations, the Sakumo team deserved substantial rewards for stabilizing the internal situation in the Land of Fire. However, Hiruzen found it challenging to determine how to reward the two girls in Sakumo's team, one from the Uchiha clan and the other from the Hyuga clan. The girl from the Hyuga clan belonged to a separate branch, but he had some reservations. The key issue was Ruri, who was highly regarded by the majority of the ruling elders in the Uchiha clan. It was unlikely that she lacked resources. If they were to receive rewards, the only option would be to open the Scroll of Seals once and allow her to choose a ninjutsu to learn from it. However, Hiruzen could already imagine the disgruntled expressions on the faces of Hamura and Koharu when the seal book was opened to Uchiha ninja. Subsequently, Hiruzen picked up Shiraishi's profile book again. Well, this one was easier to handle. High-level ninjutsu, advanced medical-related texts, and more could serve as rewards this time. Episode 47, Ruri's Parents. There won't be any missions for a while, so you can move freely, but it's best not to relax too much and maintain a state of combat readiness. Understood. After having lunch, Shiraishi and the other two were approached by Sakumo, who gave them some instructions before they went their separate ways. Shiraishi and Ruri returned to the Uchiha mansion as usual. As they walked on the road, Shiraishi felt like a lot had changed since the last time he was in the village, yet at the same time, everything seemed unchanged. What are your plans for the next few days, Ruri? The rest period wouldn't be too short, but it wouldn't be too long either. In about 2 weeks, they would be faced with another challenging mission. I'll focus on training. Ruri replied succinctly. That's just like you. I've had some new ideas lately. After several months of missions, I think I can create some practical tools to aid us in battle. Tell me more. Ruri seemed very interested. Smoke bombs are useful, but they can be easily neutralized by wind-based ninjutsu, and their effect doesn't last very long. However, what if we add some poisonous gas to the smoke bombs? When the wind blows away the smoke, the enemy would have already inhaled a significant amount of poisonous gas, weakening their strength. Shiraishi shared his thoughts and believed it was a feasible idea. Ninjas usually have some resistance to poison, especially Suna ninjas. If the poison isn't potent enough, it won't have a significant impact on them. No matter how strong their resistance is, there's still a limit. However, if we're going to use poison gas, we need to prepare an antidote in advance for our own team members to take, to prevent accidental exposure. It could work well in small-scale battles, but it might backfire in large-scale ones. Shiraishi also agreed with Ruri's serious opinion. In large-scale battles, producing enough antidotes would be a problem, and combining poison gas with smoke bombs would obstruct their vision temporarily even if they survive the poison using the antidote. However, Shiraishi didn't intend to promote this tactic widely. It would suffice to implement it within the Sakumo team. After spending a considerable amount of time together, Shiraishi had come to understand that their team primarily undertook dangerous and vital secret missions, making it essential to develop unique tactics suitable for the Sakumo team. Returning to the much-awaited mansion, as they approached, they noticed a man and a woman standing by the entrance of the Konoha gates, waving at them with joy and excitement. No, wait. Do you know them? Shiraishi hadn't seen these two people in the Uchiha clan for the past 2 or 3 years, so he turned to Ruri for an answer. They're my parents. Ruri calmly responded. Shiraishi was taken aback. It was his first time meeting Ruri's parents, and he recalled Ruri mentioning that he hadn't met them in person until now. However, since Shiraishi had been staying at Ruri's house temporarily, he had never seen Ruri's parents come home. Even during the New Year, they would exchange photos and letters. Ruri's birthday and New Year gifts were always simple, usually just a bank book. The bank book started with a 1 followed by numerous zeros. This was the simple and unexciting gift Ruri received every year for her birthday and New Year. It's been a while, Ruri. Have you missed your parents? The woman, dressed elegantly and nobly, had neatly arranged hair adorned with numerous accessories. Her appearance was a little flashy, but she didn't give off a cheesy vibe. It seemed like she was naturally born with that temperament. As soon as she approached, she embraced Ruri tightly and rubbed her face against his, causing his little face to wrinkle. Shiraishi was worried that Ruri might breathe fire and reduce his mother to ashes. Don't be so noisy. I've told you many times not to leave your saliva on my face. Ruri's face tensed, as if she was scolding her mother. Don't say that, Ruri. It's been so long since Mummy saw you. Let me take care of my cute little. Boom. Shiraishi held his forehead in frustration. He knew this would happen. A wall of the mansion beside them was smashed through by a fireball, emitting black smoke. At that moment, Ruri's mother's face was covered in cold sweat, her neck seemed to creak mechanically, and the smile on her face became extremely rigid. Honestly, Ruri is not as cute as when she was a child. She used to be. Do you want me to throw you out or burn you? Or maybe consider drowning you? Ruri's eyebrows twitched as if she had reached her limit. The woman in the elegant attire sighed and reluctantly gave up the idea of continuing to embrace and tease Ruri. Such an adorable daughter couldn't be treated like that. Her daughter was completely different. Dear, how about we have another child? Ruri has grown up and doesn't want her parents anymore. It's clearly your fault, and now you're saying Ruri has grown up. The man, who had been observing the seemingly harmonious scene between mother and daughter, seemed a bit perplexed, scratching his head in distress. His daughter had always possessed a strong personality, and as her father, he had long grown accustomed to it. Oh, you must be the Shiraishi kid that Ruri often mentions in her letters, right? The elegant woman finally noticed Shiraishi. Oh, yes, that's me. It's an honor to meet you. Finally being acknowledged, Shiraishi hurriedly bowed politely with a puzzled expression. Don't be nervous. It's rare for Ruri to find a good playmate. When she was young, Ruri used to chase after a group of boys by herself. Upon hearing the woman's words, Shiraishi could already picture that scene in his mind. With Ruri, it was entirely possible. By the way, when are you two planning to get married? You should give birth to boys. I suddenly find boys more fun than girls. The elegant woman asked with a smile. The topic took an unexpected turn, causing Shiraishi's brain to freeze, leaving him bewildered. A tick mark appeared on Ruri's forehead, and she began performing hand seals. Boom. Ruri's mother, Uchiha Miyoko, is 28 years old and in her prime. She has a liking for luxury goods and dresses beautifully, like a princess. On the other hand, Ruri's father, Uchiha Kosuka, 36 years old and has a mature appearance. He wore decent formal clothes and appears more serious and responsible than his wife Miyoko. However, when Shiraishi considered the fact that Ruri was already 12 years old while her mother Miyoko was only 28, it meant that Miyoko was only 15 years old, a minor, when she was pregnant with Ruri. Looking at Uchiha Kosuka's honest face, Shiraishi believes he was truly honest. Since both of them lack the ability to be ninjas and only have the strength of Chunin so far, according to Ruri's standards, they are still capable of becoming ninjas at the age of 20 or 30. Perhaps they simply don't have the talent to be ninjas. Over the years, Ruri's parents have been working hard on their careers outside of the village. With the help of some contacts accumulated by the Uchiha clan, their business is barely surviving, as they would describe it. Although they have returned to Konoha a few times in the past few years, their busy business schedule has prevented them from spending much time with Ruri. They would meet him at the entrance of the village and leave in a hurry. This explains why Shiraishi hadn't seen them at Ruri's house. Shiraishi returned to the underground lab. Since he had to go out on a mission, many of the experimental equipment had already been moved beforehand, but some less important ones remained. There was a lot of dust accumulated in the basement and on the instruments, so Shiraishi had to clean them up. As he finished cleaning, footsteps could be heard coming down the stairs. Ruri descended the stairs. Why did you end the family reunion so quickly? You didn't have to rush. We can catch up any time. Seems like Uncle and the others will stay in the village for a while this time. Is it because of the war outside? Shiraishi asked what was on his mind. They don't trade within the Land of Fire, but rather in the far west of the continent. So, the war here won't affect their business. Are those their real names? Well, they use pseudonyms. They know some ninjutsu, but that information isn't known in Konoha. Some elders in the clan are working behind the scenes, allowing them to trade outside without worry. Over the years, they have also hired reputable bounty hunters, both samurai and ninjas, to ensure their safety. They are, after all, a wealthy family that has been established for hundreds of years. The Uchiha clan's heritage and connections are not insignificant. For example, the Uchiha clan doesn't acquire their ninja equipment from the Land of Iron or buy it from the village, but instead from their summon ninja cat clan. Several times, the ninja cats act as the Uchiha clan's spies to gather information. This is the Uchiha clan's network. And there are likely many allies like the ninja clans, making it extremely difficult even for Konoha to access this part of the information. Similarly, the same can be said for the Hyuga clan. The number of secret connections they possess is only known by the most powerful individuals within the clan. A true giant isn't just about power and lineage, it also possesses an immensely terrifying network. Afterward, Ruri used the summoning jutsu to summon some cats. These cats carried scrolls containing various research equipment, which were sealed within the scrolls. They only needed to be unsealed and connected to the appropriate lines. Shiraishi, Ruri, and the cats worked together, placing the research equipment back in its original position and reconnecting the lines. When they finished, 2 hours had already passed. Ruri sent the cats back, and before leaving, the cats showed a hint of resentment, only to be pacified when Ruri promised to prepare good cat food for them next time. At that moment, Shiraishi looked at the vast research room and wished he had an assistant. But for now, he couldn't think about it. There were many secrets here that couldn't be shared and had to be kept confidential. Fortunately, this was the Uchiha clan, and the ANBU didn't have the authority to search the place. After all, the strength of the Uchiha police force should not be underestimated. There were numerous jonin and special jonin among them. Once clan members joined the ninja ranks, their strength upon adulthood was generally chunin or higher, which was a formidable ratio. Especially after awakening the Sharingan, the strength of the Uchiha would skyrocket, and it couldn't be taken lightly. Shiraishi had already identified his next research target. It involved fusing highly toxic smoke bombs with a corresponding antidote. Of course, research on natural energy would continue as well. Although their time in Konoha wouldn't be too long, they couldn't waste this valuable time. Just as Ruri was about to leave, Baishur suddenly said, "By the way, Ruri, can I ask you something else?" "Go ahead, what is it?" "Do you need new equipment?" "No, I have enough for now. It would do for a long time." "What is it?" "Human experiments." Shiraishi simply stated those 2 words. Ruri's pupils contracted slightly as she looked at Shiraishi seriously, who returned her gaze calmly. "Do you understand what that means?" Human experiment isn't entirely evil. As far as Shiraishi knew, many forbidden techniques were developed through human experimentation. One of the most famous examples was Senju Tobarama, the predecessor of the current Hokage. Many of the ninjutsu that Konoha's ninjas learn today originated from this second Hokage. Ruri nodded thoughtfully and said, "I'll deliver what you need tomorrow." Episode 48, Soul Ninjutsu. The next day, there were 4 or 5 additional individuals in the underground laboratory. These individuals were dressed like farmers working in the fields, but their faces were filled with a fierce expression, and their bodies were robust. Even though they were bound, their eyes glowed with a murderous light, emitting a strong aura of violence. Their lives had been tainted by taking the lives of others. Shiraishi didn't inquire about their origins or their previous identities, but most of them were robbers who had committed murder outside. Currently, there was much chaos outside, with countless robbers burning, killing, and looting. Shiraishi had encountered such situations during his missions, and he had easily dealt with many of these robber groups. However, at this moment, Shiraishi didn't care where these individuals came from or what they had done. Once they entered the laboratory, their fate was similar to the mice that Shiraishi had used for his experiments. They fell into the category of experimental subjects. With a systematic plan in place, the natural energy experiment itself wasn't life-threatening, but absolutes couldn't be relied upon. After all, animal subjects had been used in previous experiments, and the life structure of animals differed significantly from that of humans. Therefore, humans were now being used for the experiment. The injection of natural energy didn't rule out the possibility of unexpected risks. It's hard to find experimental subjects, so don't use them all at once. Ruri had mentioned this before leaving. Transporting these experimental subjects had required a significant amount of manpower and resources, so she wanted to remind them. Don't worry, don't forget that I'm also a medical ninja, so I can reuse them. Shiraishi knew it wasn't easy for Ruri to acquire these experimental subjects, so he didn't plan on using them all at once. Medical ninjutsu could be extremely valuable in times like these. As long as they didn't die, they could be reused. Moreover, Shiraishi believed that the possibility of his research endangering lives was very low. He had already experimented on numerous animals before conducting human experiments. With careful handling, life was essentially guaranteed. After Ruri left, Shiraishi entered his official working mode. The mouths of the few individuals brought to the laboratory were sealed with cloth, preventing them from speaking loudly. They could only let out low whimpers, showing their dissatisfaction with their treatment. For these robbers who had lived by shedding blood on the edge of their knives, there was no fear in their eyes. It was estimated that they were contemplating how to overpower Shiraishi and escape. Shiraishi ignored their low, angry shouts and randomly selected one of them, laying him down on the testing bench. Since he was too unruly, he had to inject him with a small dose of anesthesia first to make him dizzy and more cooperative. Don't worry, coming here to act as my experimental subjects is much better than living a life outside, not knowing when you'll suddenly die. And my experiments won't pose a danger to your lives, I can assure you of that. The expressions of these individuals seemed to change, their eyes becoming wary, while Shiraishi maintained his calm tone. Even for sustainable use, Shiraishi would do his best to ensure that their lives continued. After all, in this troubled world, many people lived from one meal to the next. A large country might be fine, but for people in small countries, even a meal was a luxury. In this war-torn era where morality held little importance, Shiraishi had already told himself that life wasn't worth celebrating, and death wasn't worth mourning. Life was often considered priceless because it was considered worthless. 2 days later, Shiraishi emerged from the underground laboratory. Except for eating and sleeping, he had spent most of his time conducting experiments there over the past 2 days. Although there hadn't been any progress yet, considering that human experiments had just begun, it would take at least a week to draw some conclusions. As he stepped out of the underground lab, Shiraishi took a breath. It was July, and the sunlight felt scorching, draining people's energy. One thing that made Shiraishi complain incessantly was that even though there were electric lights and computers in this world, there was no air conditioning. When he entered the room where Ruri was, he immediately felt the difference in temperature. The coolness inside contrasted greatly with the sweltering heat outside. The room was filled with ice, and a fan blew constantly, spreading the cool air to every corner of the room, creating an effect similar to an air conditioner. At this moment, Ruri was wearing a loose blue casual dress, and there were scattered scrolls and black leather boxes around her. What are these? Shiraishi pointed to the scrolls and the black leather case. These are the rewards from our previous mission, and this is your share. The total amount is 1.2 million ryo. The rest are scrolls related to medical knowledge, as well as a few practical medical ninjutsu. I see. Shiraishi sat down, opened one of the scrolls, and a smile appeared on his face. I didn't expect the village to be so generous and reward me with such valuable items. This is the important information I was hoping to obtain. I thought they wouldn't be this generous. I might as well pass on some information and expose this matter. It seems that the village's higher-ups have a bit of humanity after all. I gave you those things because I wanted to get rid of you easily, you idiot. Do you really think you're capable of something? Ruri glanced at Shiraishi, who was feeling complacent. For them, using these items to eliminate you is the most convenient way to save trouble and resources. Upon hearing Ruri's words, Shiraishi immediately understood. It doesn't matter. Even though it was a mistake, these materials and medical ninjutsu have been very helpful to me. Really? Just be happy, then. By the way, what about your reward, Ruri? Afterwards, I'm going to the Hokage building. The village's higher-ups have approved me to choose any ninjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll. As Ruri said this, her expression showed surprise. She hadn't expected the third Hokage to have such courage. To her knowledge, the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan had always had a strained relationship. Even though things had improved over the years, it was only on the surface. Upon hearing this, Shiraishi suddenly felt that the scroll in his hand wasn't as significant. Have you decided which ninjutsu you'll choose? Shiraishi cleared his gloomy mood and asked. Ruri let out a bored yawn, lay down on her side, and played with a kunai in her hand. The elders in the clan respect my choice, but I haven't given much thought to it yet. I don't know what powerful ninjutsu are sealed in the Forbidden Scroll, and I don't necessarily need high-level ninjutsu. Do you have any suggestions? Ruri had some knowledge about the Forbidden Scroll, but she wasn't particularly aware of the number and types of forbidden techniques, profound meanings, and secret techniques recorded in it. How about choosing soul-related ninjutsu? Shiraishi made a suggestion. Soul? Ruri raised an eyebrow. I've heard that there's a jounin named Kato-dan in the village who possesses a very mysterious soul-based ninjutsu. He seems to be Tsunade-sensei's boyfriend. I think this type of ninjutsu could be very helpful for my research. Understood, Ruri said after thinking for a while, nodding in agreement. After all, she didn't have many demands for the ninjutsu in the Forbidden Scroll. If soul-based ninjutsu could truly assist Shiraishi and help him uncover the secret of immortality sooner, it would be a significant advancement for her as well. Episode 49. Result: Ruri went to the Hokage building, but returned home shortly after. Upon Ruri's return, Shiraishi noticed that she was holding a scroll and tossed it to him. Thank you, Shiraishi said, catching the scroll without hesitation. Just focus on studying the jutsu, Ruri urged. It's truly a challenging task. There's so little information on Sage Mode. Even if I managed to learn something from it, having access to the Sage Arts system of the 3 sacred lands would greatly aid my work, Shiraishi replied. Forget about it. Without the summoning contract signed with the 3 sacred lands, it would be incredibly difficult to find, let alone obtain senjutsu from there. Speaking of which, the Sannin truly were extraordinary ninja, Shiraishi thought. The Konoha Sannin had close ties with the 3 sacred lands, and such rumors were widespread. Not only did their disciples benefit from these connections, but also the 3 lands' support. For ordinary ninjas, it was an unattainable dream. But even the Sannin, I've never heard of them succeeding in mastering Sage Mode, Shiraishi added. Of course. I'm not sure if the Sage Modes practiced by the summoned animals differ from the one I've studied. However, fusing natural energy with regular chakra poses significant risks and could potentially be fatal, Ruri explained. Shiraishi sat down in the room, took a sip of tea, and opened the scroll in his hand. The scroll began with the developer's name and the name of the ninjutsu. Spirit Transformation Jutsu. Developer, Senju Tobarama. According to the records, the spirit transformation allowed the soul to leave the body and travel any distance to directly attack the enemy. However, even after the soul left the body, the spirit would still retain the consciousness of the caster. This versatile ninjutsu had various applications beyond combat, such as information transmission, wide-area sensory, and even the transmission of chakra to allies. All these tasks could be accomplished through spiritualization techniques. Shiraishi couldn't help but admire the former Hokage, Senju Tobarama, who developed this technique. It was a pity to hear that he died on the battlefield during the First Ninja World War. Shiraishi agreed with many of the ideas implemented by the previous Hokage. Establishing a ninja academy, creating the Umbu organization, restraining and suppressing the ninja clans, improving the status of civilians, and developing secret arts and ninjutsu specific to Konoha. His influence could be seen in political, scientific, and military spheres, becoming the foundation for other ninja villages around the world. Although the concept of one country, one village was created by the Senju and Uchiha clans, the system was merely a hollow shell. It was thanks to the efforts of Senju Tobarama that the village structure gradually evolved into a better place. The balance between the civilian and ninja classes created a stable equilibrium, with each side acting as a check on the other. The balancing act was truly remarkable. With the outbreak of the First Ninja World War, Senju Tobarama died. Even with his unfulfilled ambitions, he could only fade away, entrusting the future of the village to the current 3 Hokage. Shiraishi didn't know much about the 3rd Hokage. It could be because the shadow of the previous Hokage, Senju Tobarama, loomed large, causing many to overlook the actions of the 3rd Hokage. After all, many systems had been perfected during the time of the previous Hokage, leaving future generations with little room for surpassing their predecessors. Shiraishi could only wonder what incredible feats the 3rd generation of Hokage would accomplish in the future. Having contemplated this, Shiraishi returned to the underground laboratory with the scroll on spirit transformation. He had injected natural energy into the experimental subjects, and now it would take time to observe and collect data. Now, it was time to address the issue of the caged bird seal. Shiraishi had been studying the caged bird for a while, but progress had been hindered due to lack of data and incomplete analysis of the deeper chakra structure. According to Iane, once the caged bird seal was engraved, it would remain for a lifetime and only be released upon the person's death. In other words, the caged bird could only be set free under the condition of death. But what exactly constituted death? Was it the physical body or the soul? What characteristics were inherent in chakra? People were born with chakra, and losing chakra resulted in death. If Iane's chakra were to be completely depleted, leading to her death, would the caged bird seal be eliminated? Of course, this kind of death wasn't a true death, but rather a state of suspended animation resembling death. If Chakra was given to Ayane, would she awaken from the state of suspended animation if she died due to exhaustion? The premise of this experiment was to verify a crucial point: what happens when a person loses their chakra? Do they truly die? If death doesn't necessarily occur when chakra is lost, then how did chakra become the vital life energy necessary for human survival? Does the loss of chakra entail physical death or spiritual death? Is it possible for humans to lose their chakra and enter a marvelous state of suspended animation, only to be revived when chakra is replenished? Could such a feat be achieved? Confirmation of these aspects through experimentation would likely eliminate the issue of the caged bird seal. Furthermore, it would address many of the doubts lingering in Shiraishi's mind. He meticulously recorded these hypotheses in a notebook he carried with him. In the realm of science, hypotheses are formed in response to doubts, and they must be tested to determine their validity. Therefore, the study of soul ninjutsu was essential. The only drawback was that it was currently an era of war, and Shiraishi could be deployed for missions at any time, leaving him with little opportunity to conduct experiments in the underground laboratory. Listening to the agonizing screams of the experimental subject on the operating table, the pain was unbearable. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Shiraishi calmly observed the experimental subject convulsing on the table, their face twisted in pain. There was no emotion in his eyes as he skillfully cut off a piece of epidermis eroded by natural energy from their arm. The pale green epidermis was placed in a container and observed under a microscope. He then turned his attention to the computer screen, which displayed the subject's heartbeat frequency and the fluctuation value resulting from the fusion of natural energy and chakra. The subjects went from being uncooperative in the beginning to resembling broken dolls with numb expressions, devoid of fear in their eyes. Shiraishi realized that he had underestimated the mental and physical impact that occurs when natural energy merges with chakra in the human body. Therefore, whenever an experimental subject showed signs of mental breakdown, he would promptly stop the experiment, administer a calming drug, and replace them with another subject. This repetitive and sustainable approach could also be considered cost-effective. Shiraishi glanced at the trembling individuals huddled against the wall and shook his head. They lacked the dedication to science that he possessed. If his experiment succeeded, these people would transform from ordinary individuals to beings with senjutsu chakra in their bodies. Although they may not know any ninjutsu, their vitality, strength, speed, and reflexes would undergo significant improvements. Longevity wouldn't be an issue for them, lasting for at least 100 years. As for immortality, Shiraishi pondered for a moment, but the more he thought about it, the more implausible it seemed. Research on natural energy is on the right track. The development of senjutsu chakra requires further data deduction and improved fusion success rates. Next, we can focus on addressing the issue of the caged bird seal. Wait a minute. Shiraishi suddenly realized a serious problem. How could he collect detailed physical data on Ayane's current condition? He was currently residing in the Uchiha clan, while Ayane was a member of the Hyuga clan. If he were to bring Ayane over and they were accidentally discovered by Ruri. A cold sweat trickled down Shiraishi's face. He quickly calculated his chances of survival if discovered. Episode 50, Desire, the farthest feeling from understanding. It took an hour to reach Ruri's room. She was holding a scroll and studying it carefully. Shiraishi glanced at it and saw that it contained information about fire release jutsu. What's going on? Ruri looked away from the scroll and looked up at Shiraishi. Ah, well. I need to go to the pharmacy to buy some herbs, I don't have enough in the lab. Shiraishi scratched his head, his expression unchanged, showing no signs of abnormality. Got it. Just remember to bring me some natto when you come back. Natto? Shiraishi nodded, indicating that he understood, and left the room. As he stepped outside, he let out a light sigh, relieved that he had finally made it through. Bringing Ayane here to collect her body data was not a reliable option. It was difficult to do, and the risk of accidental discovery was too high. This was the interior of the Uchiha clan. It would be better to collect Ayane's body data outside. He had also thought of the location, his former home. Taking the storage scroll with him, he went to buy some natto first to avoid forgetting it later. Next, he would go to the Hyuga clan to find Ayane. It was impossible to hide within the Hyuga family and find Ayane. Not to mention the disdainful gazes, the Hyuga clan's compound was close to the village center, and the environment there was completely different from that of the Uchiha clan. The village's defense force was also the strongest there. The Uchiha clan, on the other hand, had to live in a slightly more remote area in the middle of the village. Unexpectedly, the Uchiha clan also had authority over the garrison, and living in the center of the village made it easier to mobilize the garrison. This approach was simply contradictory, and it went against normal logic in many ways. Shiraishi had lived in the Uchiha clan for years. He didn't know the core secrets of the Uchiha, and Ruri hadn't explained them to him. However, he was aware that the relationship between the Uchiha clan and the village's top management appeared relaxed on the surface, but in reality, it was a messy and guarded relationship full of hostility. With these thoughts in mind, Shiraishi arrived at the Hyuga clan. It was worth noting that the ninjas of the Hyuga clan seemed to prioritize literacy more than the Uchiha clan. Of course, this was just an outsider's perspective. If viewed from within the Hyuga clan, things might not always be as they seemed. After all, even if the caged bird seal was explained as a means to protect the Byakugan, it was actually quite challenging to maintain. If the purpose was solely to protect the Byakugan, they could simply modify the caged bird seal's function to nullify the Byakugan's abilities when a branch member died. But that wasn't the case. The caged bird seal also had the ability to curse and kill. It made the branch members who didn't obey the clan feel unbearable. Using the excuse of protecting the Byakugan was unconvincing. Adding the curse-killing function to the caged bird seal was, in Shiraishi's view, excessive and unnecessary. If sealing the Byakugan was only done when necessary to protect it, it could be called protecting the Byakugan. The branch members might not hold such resentment towards the clan. Shiraishi-kun, why are you here? Did Tsukumo-sensei give you any new assignments? Ayane wore neat white clothes, and her long black hair was neatly styled behind her. She looked slightly puzzled upon seeing Shiraishi coming to find her. It's not that. I need to buy some herbs and make some medicine for future missions. But I'm a bit overwhelmed on my own, so I wanted to ask for your help. I see. Ayane pointed her finger at her chin, pondered for a moment, and then smiled innocently. That's fine, but let's hurry. I need to be back before dinner. All right. Shiraishi then took Ayane to the pharmacy to purchase various herbs with different effects. Speaking of which, most of the pharmacies in Konoha were run by the Nara clan. This clan excelled in deer farming, and deer antlers were highly valued as medicinal materials. The Nara clan's pharmacies boasted a wide range of deer antlers, which was considered their major selling point. Many merchants from other regions would come to Konoha specifically to buy Nara clan's deer antlers. It was a testament to their excellent quality. Fair prices and respectful treatment of customers made the Nara clan a preferred choice for many. In contrast, the Uchiha clan's position in Konoha was rather embarrassing. Although they were one of the two major clans that founded Konoha, they had no connections within the village. They had no affiliation with the Hyuga clan, let alone the three clans deeply trusted by the Hokage. By the time they left the pharmacy, it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After such a long detour, it was finally time to get down to business. The place where Shiraishi used to live is quite far from the center of Konoha, and it has been neglected for years. Shiraishi-kun, are we meeting secretly like this? After entering the room, Ayane placed her hands behind her back and leaned slightly to the side. Her clean face was partially visible, adorned with a faint smile. Now we're getting down to business. I was wondering, what would Shiraishi-kun do if Ruri found out about this? Sneaking around with other girls behind her back while spending every day and night with her. Maybe the emotional turmoil would further evolve the Sharingan into a Manjikyu Sharingan. It's not that easy for the Sharingan to evolve like that. You're overthinking. You never know. Ruri is an Uchiha genius, and intense emotional fluctuations are known to be the best catalyst for the Sharingan's evolution. You do realize I risked my life to be here. We need to focus on the task at hand. Well, take off your clothes quickly. Take off? Everything? Shiraishi-kun, this is for my future husband. Ayane blushed, hugging her chest tightly and biting her lip, clearly feeling embarrassed. What are you thinking? We've done this many times before. Let's not dwell on just removing your coat. Even if you take everything off, I'll treat you equally as a doctor. Shiraishi responded earnestly to Ayane. So, it doesn't matter if I undress completely for the tests now? Ayane's fingers had already unzipped her shirt, revealing her chest. Some muscles seemed to be bulging, and there was an intriguing smile in her eyes. No need for that. Let's get it done quickly. I'm in a hurry. Really, this is such a good opportunity. Are you really only 12 years old? Maybe girls mature a bit earlier? In our clan, there's a 14-year-old girl. Since she's not a ninja, her only role is to bear children for the clan. She's currently pregnant and due in September this year. Shiraishi sighed. In this war-ridden era, the population was indeed a pressing issue. However, Shiraishi knew that fertility rates in this world were high, thanks to the prevalence of chakra and various advanced medical ninjutsu. He wasn't well informed about the situation elsewhere, but according to the female fertility records at Konoha Hospital, only a very small number of women encountered childbirth complications, and even those cases were successfully managed. The issue of early childbirth depended on specific circumstances. Nevertheless, Shiraishi didn't support such practices. It wasn't about physical readiness, but rather about values in life. Whether it was going to the battlefield prematurely or giving birth prematurely, it would lead to various risks and deviations in the future life experiences of those involved. But in an era without concrete laws safeguarding basic human rights, such concerns were merely wishful thinking, and those in power could dictate as they pleased. Whether it was due to neglecting this problem, fear of the consequences, or an unwillingness to relinquish personal interests, none of it concerned Shiraishi. In his pursuit of his own political affairs, he was just a medical ninja, and his duty was to be a doctor. Shiraishi unrolled the scroll and began sealing, extracting the body-sensing device from it. It had to be acknowledged that storage scrolls were incredibly useful. They could store almost anything except living beings, albeit at a slightly higher price. Ayane lay down on the cold operating table and waited calmly. She didn't tease Shiraishi anymore and patiently awaited the results of his analysis. She understood the significance of the caged bird's curse mark. The test didn't take long, only about 10 minutes. Ayane got off the operating table and asked, "Is everything all right?" "Yes, I have a solution for the caged bird's curse. I'll explain the specific methods and steps when we embark on our next mission. For now, we still need to live under Konoha's protection. During this period, I'll also search for a suitable base and relocate there." "Have you found one?" "The Land of Ghosts and the Land of Iron." As Shiraishi mentioned the names of these two countries, Ayane was slightly taken aback. The Land of Ghosts and the Land of Iron were permanent neutral countries in the ninja world. The conflicts that had erupted over the years hadn't affected these countries significantly. Moreover, their remote locations made them less susceptible to being targeted by major powers. Their abundant resources were the primary cause of the ninja world wars. If that's the case, those countries would indeed be suitable for living. When is the exact time to leave Konoha? The next ninja war is approaching. The next ninja war? Won't it take too long? The first and second ninja wars were separated by over a decade, and it was uncertain when the third ninja war would break out. Don't worry. Once this ninja world war concludes, the next shinobi world war will follow, and it won't be too far off. It will once again revolve around the rich lands of the Land of Fire. That will be the ideal time for us to leave Konoha. They will be engulfed in the war from all sides and won't have time to deal with missing individuals like us. Shiraishi made this inference based on factual observations. Konoha's diplomatic approach, while mild, didn't make the other 4 major ninja villages fear its strength. Instead, it aroused their jealousy and greed more easily. During the current reign of the third Hokage, although Konoha had experienced many victories in foreign wars, each time was a reactive response. Whether it was the war in the Land of Rain or the recent Suna invasion of Land of Fire, they were forced into defensive actions. Even if they emerged victorious, it could still be considered a failure, as there were no benefits gained after the wars ended. The enemy didn't demand compensation for their losses, they merely sought fame without any substantial advantages. It may appear as a victory, but in Shiraishi's opinion, it's merely benefiting from the groundwork laid by the previous 2 generations of Hokage. Ayane looked at Shiraishi, somewhat understanding his speculation. However, as the leader of the 5 major ninja villages, Konoha has always held the top position in military power. Even if another war occurs after this current one, it should take place many years later. How can one claim that the interval won't be too long? Shiraishi smiled softly, gazing at the peaceful scene outside the window, and spoke. Peace survives through struggle, and compromise leads to its demise. Konoha, as the most powerful nation, showcases a lenient and weak foreign policy. This will only result in being surrounded by wolves. The more one desires peace, the more likely they are to face forced wars. But in the past, Shiraishi knew what Ayane wanted to add and interrupted her. The will of fire was only suitable for the first Hokage. This will to seek peace through compromise is not applicable to later generations. No one wishes to hold the same innocent dream as him after his passing. These 2 ninja wars are evidence of that. They are also the foundation for my speculation. Is the first Hokage the source of the disaster? Ayane was taken aback by such a statement. In a way, yes. Even if Konoha is eventually destroyed, perhaps they won't understand why it happened. Longing, as they say, is the feeling farthest from understanding. It's not entirely accurate to attribute Konoha's current unfavorable state solely to the 3 generations of Hokage. The seeds of chaos were sown during the era of the first Hokage. The third Hokage merely took on the responsibility for the first Hokage and cleaned up the mess. Therefore, the outbreak of the Third Ninja World War is inevitable, and a short interval between the Second and Third Ninja World Wars is also expected. It will be the safest time to leave Konoha at that point. Konoha, entangled in danger from all sides, will be exhausted from dealing with the war and won't have the time to focus on suppressing rebellions and maintaining tolerance. Is that so? I've yearned for you, Shiraishi-kun, for so long. However, I also long to know everything about you. So, when it's just the two of us, please treat me kindly. Ayane's face displayed a pure and radiant smile, accompanied by a shy blush. Shiraishi was momentarily stunned, unsure of how to respond. Be gentle with me. To what extent does Ayane desire him to fulfill her wishes? This summer is truly scorching, enough to make one feel restless.